So once again, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Jasmine and I work here for the WatSPEED team. For today, if you have any technical difficulties, please feel free to reach out to my colleague Derek through the chat feature and he can help you from there as well. So joining us today, we have our instructor, Will. Will, thank you so much for joining us. Will brings over 13 years of experience in the consulting industry. And so he's going to be able to provide us some great knowledge on the course. And if you have any questions, please wait till the end of the session and you can always ask him your questions at that time. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Will now. Will, please take it away.
Thank you, Jasmine, and welcome everyone. So again, my name is Will Shang. I am an adjunct instructor and professor with the University of Waterloo, focused on data analytics. In my day job, I actually do consulting. I do a lot of data analytics consulting for organizations as well as cybersecurity. And the reason I'm really excited to share this course with you is we went through this is probably the third offering, and I think we finally are trying to get it into a spot where you're able to bring your own problems, your own, let's call it day-to-day challenges to the course, and really solve your day-to-day issues as you're going through this. And why is that important to all of us? Well, I don't think this graph will be any surprise to us, but data is really driving a lot of decision making. And data is driving a lot of decision makers, especially leaders that we talk to say, how do I make better decisions? How do I make more informed decisions? And how do I invest in a way that makes sense? A lot of my clients over the last few years, they may have spent a lot of money on tools. They may have spent a lot of money on getting the latest bells and whistles, but they're not seeing a lot of return. And what we want to do in this course is to explore why that might be. So in the graph on the right, just to take 2 seconds to look at this, it is from 2020. We can see the different industries are all getting a lot of value from data and how to make decisions, banking being the highest. In our course, we're probably going to focus quite a bit on retail, the 43%. And you may ask, well, why retail? Retail has been a very interesting market, especially because of COVID. If you think about the pricing, if you think about everything that's happened with Amazon and the other online deliveries, that has been very interesting. The other one is telecommunications. And how do we look at that marketplace and how do we analyze customer behavior, cost behavior? Those are some of the things that we're going to look at from a data standpoint. From the other angle is what are we trying to do with data? And here's another graphic just to share with you again, just to set the groundwork of why we care about data and data analytics and predictive analytics is monetization and quantifying data has become very important. How do we monetize the assets using our products? And how do we understand how valuable our data is, especially the data in our accounting systems? So in this graph, you'll see we are able to monetize quite a bit. And this is, by the way, from August of 2020. I think the survey was quite a bit across the globe conducted by Capgemini. But you'll see the shares of folks who are saying, I'm able to monetize my assets are probably 60% in banking, as an example. But the folks who are saying, I can actually create value and understand what the value of the data is that I have is only 28%. So what does that tell us? It means that a lot of folks have data, but they don't know what it is. They don't know how to quantify it. They don't know how to monetize it, but they believe they can, right? So that 28 and 60 gap, that's the gap we're trying to close, okay? The way we're going to want to think about this, and I know everyone kind of joined and wanted to understand a little more about the course. Let me set some frameworks and groundwork in terms of what we're trying to achieve. We want to start building up everyone's capabilities for us to eventually get to predictive analytics or get to understanding what predictive analytics is. Predictive analytics at its core is looking at the data and translating that, let's call it business issue, and looking at that data and mirror and getting those two to come together so that we understand how we can make predictions. Very basic example is we may have a business problem to say, how do we hire better or more suitable people for our organization? That's our business problem. And then you have to look into your organization and say, what data do I have? Well, can I predict who will be good in my business based on their education? Or is it based on their past employment? How many data points do I have and how can I solve this business problem? That's actually one of the projects I'm working on today or this week, right? How do you help organizations decide on where to invest in the next center of excellence, where to invest in terms of the next schools they want to hire from, right? So that's part of the process as we go through week 1 and week 2 to understand what our business problems are and how do we understand the data that we have. Okay. Once we have that understanding, we can then influence decision makers. We can say, here's the business problem I'm trying to solve. Here's the data I have available. And now I'm going to look at regression. I'm looking at other types of predictive models and other types of technology that can help me answer the business problem or business issue we are trying to resolve. We've thrown some examples in here, one of which Rolls-Royce started looking at maintenance schedules for their vehicles, their airplane engines. And what they're trying to do is to say, when will the engine break? Which part of it will break? And how do I get in front of it? PepsiCo started predicting when retailers are going to run out of stock, right? Personally, I like Coke, but anyway, Pepsi started doing that and they started proactively sending Pepsis across the globe to make sure that they stay ahead of the demand, right? So at the end of the day, we're coming together and we're going to do this course for one reason. We're going to try to learn how do we take advantage of data and predictive analytics to either increase our revenue or reduce costs, right? And reducing costs could be in many different forms. It could be reducing your risk as well. So those are the things we want to explore together. The structure of the course is very back and forth. It's not really, I hate to say it, I don't like the whole lecture style. I want to hear from the participants and the instructors want to hear from the participants so that we can have a dialogue. We're also going to have the opportunity to write every week a very short memo just to say, hey, there was this concept. How do I apply it in my day to day? And then the instructor provides you with feedback to say, oh, that's a great idea, but have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this other method? And we hope that would bring value to you in your day to day work. Okay. So for the finance professional or for the business professional, what does this look like? What are we trying to achieve, right? The first bullet there, I think all of us know that data analytics or data and analytics are going to be a core foundational skill. And we actually broke this up on purpose. Why is it data and analytics? The reason is data on its own is very important. And I think very few people right now out there really understand how to understand data. I've sat in board meetings with executives where they say, we have, millions of rows of data. Let's go after predictive analytics. But what we don't understand is 80% of the work is actually cleaning your data. It's actually understanding your data. And we as practitioners, how do we communicate that to leadership to say, yes, we have 20 million rows, but we're not ready to make any decisions on this data until we do some cleaning, until we do some analytics, do some homework or foundational things on it, right? So that's one piece. The other part is analytics. Now, if you have clean data, how do you get the best analytics out of that? In weeks 3 and 4, we're going to talk a little more about how to put that package together and how do you influence the people around you with a, let's call it, approach or a project that delivers value very quickly so that you get fuel and you get funding to continue to work. Okay. So for folks in finance or business, we're at the right intersection. We know the business. Often we see the data. And more importantly, we have access often to the right data, right? So that's why we want to be here. The other component here is organizations have often already invested. We talk to clients who have thrown thousands of dollars, millions of dollars into analytics platforms or data warehouse or what have you. But they're not getting the value that they see. And we want to talk about why that is. We're dealing with a client where they built these models and folks left the organization and now they're all broken, right? So how do we prevent that from happening? We have to go back to fundamentals and highlight again that people and knowledge are key. Tools are very good, but people are key. On week 5, at the end of week 4, we are going to go through a walkthrough to say what tools are out there in the marketplace, roughly what they do, how you can get involved with them. And you'll be happy to know there's actually some really good free ones that we can get into as well as you start building up your skills. Okay. So some examples. This is not examples from other folks. This is stuff I've worked on. So just to get your brain working in terms of, hey, how can I possibly, take this course and start applying it in my day-to-day? The first one is updating warranty prices. So if you ever buy a vehicle, they might sell you extended warranty. We looked at the warranty prices and we use vehicle predictors to say, when will certain vehicles, particular models, break? And how can we update the warranty prices to reflect that? We use a lot of regression for this piece, right? And obviously we found, there was one person who kept buying extended warranties for their vehicle. It was a 30-year-old vehicle, and we realized the company was losing a lot of money on that particular car. So how do you use that to fuel what you need to do for warranty prices? And for this particular client, they actually used it for a marketing campaign, and it worked out very well, right? The second piece we talk about is predicting a player's risk score as it pertains to cybersecurity, looking at their behavior. What do they click on? What do they have access to? And what are some predictive behavior analytics for us to say, this particular person may be very good at IT, but from a risk standpoint, they seem to take a lot of risks as it comes to cyber. They might click on every link. They might be curious. How do we make those predictions? And the last one, and this was very interesting, we did this one before COVID, is we found that when users or when employees move further away from the office, and if that distance was about, another additional 15 minutes, there was an 80% chance that employee will leave that organization within 3 to 6 months. Really cool stats, right? And this last piece again was using a regression to try to get to here. So these are some stories I want to bring to the table from my past life, and to share with you, just to get us, into the right conversations and help you guys try to imagine the art of the possible. All right. I am not monitoring. So I do want to say, if you guys have any questions, put it in chat or feel free. I'm not sure if you're able to unmute yourself and say, or ask the questions you like, but I'm happy to take any questions throughout the presentation. We don't have to wait to the very end. Okay. And so going back to the course, it's a 5-week course. It's live and it's interactive. The way we want to kind of teach this course is we kind of go through material. We sometimes might break for group work for you to talk in your breakout groups. But every week there will be a very small assignment for you to complete. I think the hours we've estimated is probably 5 to 7 hours per week for you to achieve this course. But I think the feedback we've gotten from a lot of previous students is you really get what you put in. And a lot of folks, I actually had someone write me like a 10-page memo describing their business problem and, asking what do you think I should do? And I think I wrote them a 2-page response and then had a sidebar meeting with them. So those are the dialogue that we really value in this course. And at the end of the day, we do have a final group project where you're working together to actually build a predictive model. And one other thing to mention is during the on one business, and we're working with them from the very beginning when you get the data to what is the business problem, and then to solving each business problem as it comes. So you are getting a lot of hands-on experience in terms of how do you take a business problem and get to the solution. And the other piece is, we found that was very helpful is a lot of folks, coming to this course are probably in the same shoes. You may have the same problems. So, you're not just learning from the instructor, from me, but you're learning from one another. And a lot of folks, come with the same war stories, and you may go through the same thing, but avoid some of the obstacles because someone can share their story with you. Okay. So that's a little bit about the course. And then I guess we already covered some of this, but the fundamental principles is we want to make sure we understand what the biggest barriers are and how you get across it. How can you find the data that's useful to you? And then after that, how do we build the right analytics models? How do we understand the predictive models that others may be building for us? If you have a data science team and they come to you with results, how do you validate that that's correct? How do you validate which model actually works? And I think that's very critical for us. And to be clear, in this amount of time, we're not training data scientists. We're not meant to. But what we want to arm you guys with is the basic knowledge to challenge your data science team and also to guide them to make sure that they are successful, right? So that's some of the pieces that we want to pull together. Okay. Won't go through this in a great deal of detail. I think we're going to pivot over to questions, but I'll leave this on the slide. A lot of what we're going to do is going back to this component called cross-industry standard process or data mining. And that's really the methodology behind this. And stories to say, going through this, where are you going to see failures? Where are you going to see issues? And we're going to try to get through that component with you. Okay. I think, Jasmine, that's really all I had to say at this point.
Thank you, Will.
Ready to
Yeah,
open up the floor.
absolutely. So at this point, I'd like to invite anybody who has any questions. Please feel free to turn on your camera, or you can just unmute yourself and read out your question. You can always send out questions on the chat as well. Like Will mentioned, we can get to those as well.
A crowd? No questions?
We do
We'll give
have
it
one
another
question
second.
from Melanie in the
Oh, okay.
chat.
Yeah.
She wants to know, what background knowledge do I need for the course?
What background knowledge? That's a great question. I think if you come with an open mind and really have a little bit of Excel skills, because Excel is really as deep as we're going to go, I think that will be fine. We had folks who came last time who knew how to understand their business and knew how, good or bad their data may be. But they really were new to the whole, let's say, data cleansing or data analytics side. But they gain a lot of it because we're not trying to train programmers, but what we're trying to do is teach you guys concepts in terms of, if you have, let's say, 200,000 lines of data, how do you understand that data? How do you know if the data is good or bad? And that doesn't take a lot of prerequisite knowledge. But if you have any, let's call it knowledge around, excuse me, around your own business and some basic Excel skills, I think that'll be suffice. So I wouldn't worry about that prereq. Okay. I see one in the chat, live and interactive. What time will this class happen? I'll be honest, I'm gonna call on one of my support team here to help me answer that. I don't remember what time, but I don't think it's 12 at midnight, if that helps. Yeah.
It, yeah, it's going to be taking place on Fridays from 10 to 11 through Zoom.
Perfect. And I think it's happening October, Jasmine, was it?
Yeah, September 22nd
September,
starting.
October. So I promise we'll get you off on time at 11 a.m. and you can still make the tea time and play the last few rounds of golf before winter hits us. But yeah, that's the time.
And just a quick note about the live sessions. They are not mandatory, but I will say that we strongly recommend that you attend them. But the last two live sessions are compulsory for all students to attend. The first four live sessions, you can always tune in later for the recordings if you can't make it, but the last two live sessions are mandatory for everybody to attend as well. So please keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Jasmine. I think it is very valuable for you to come and meet your other students as well. One session we had a gentleman from the CRA, and he was asking about how to use predictive analytics to fuel the audits that they do at the CRA. So as you can imagine, everyone was very interested all of a sudden to figure out their risks of audit, right? So the cross industry knowledge is tremendous and it'll help. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Will is your instructor, so this is your time to ask him any questions related to the course. Feel free to mute yourselves, and can be a very simple question as well. So please feel free.
Yeah, and it's okay if there isn't. I think the way, my experience, guys, I've taught at Waterloo in the first year and second year, as well as the master level, and I've taught this course 3 times. This would be my third time. The way I think we are all successful in doing this is when we are going through the live sessions or even the presentations at the very end. I like to make sure everyone feels comfortable asking questions. There are no silly questions. And because we're coming in as a professional course, I think everyone comes in with a different mindset or even different skill levels, and we welcome that. So one thing I like to say is, please don't feel intimidated to say, hey, I don't know enough about data to get into this. That certainly isn't the case. And the other component of it is if you like, we had a data analytics leader with us the last class, and he still got something out of it because there was a lot of aha moments that he didn't think about because he was so busy strategizing, he wasn't in the weeds anymore. So I think it's a good fit for that level as well. So anyway.
We do. Thank you, Will. We do have a couple more questions here that I can read out. Somebody wants to know, can you share some information about the supports available for participants? How might we receive help on the course concepts and the business problems or questions we're trying to address with our learning?
That's a great question. So typically what we try to do as instructors, at least for the courses I'm teaching, if you need to reach out, like let's say we finish the lecture, we have a week for you to do the assignment, and there's something that just doesn't make sense, you have my contact information, at least email. I'm usually pretty quick at responding. So that's one way of going about it. We have a great WatSPEED team. So if there's an
Mhm.
issue with the platform, if there's an issue with course material, you can't log in or you can't find where something is, there's always someone available to help you there as well.
Absolutely. And feel free to message me privately as well for any learn related queries or for the course, like Will mentioned. I'll be able to help you as well with my other WhatSpeed team as well. We do have another question, Will. Somebody says, you shared the value of predictive analytics for finance professionals, and you mentioned some examples for folks in sales. But is this course applicable to professionals from other industries as well?
It I think so. It will help me answer that question if I knew what industry and what role. To be fair, we're going to be analyzing and the data set that we're going to go through, just so everyone's aware, is a retail store that sells alcohol across a few states in the US. So as you can imagine, as retail, we're looking
I think
at
we just
traffic.
lost Will's audio for a second. We'll just give it a minute so he can connect back.
Hey, do you have me back, Jasmine?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm stopping my share just to save
No
on bandwidth.
worries.
What part did you hear up to?
I think you just started. So if you could please
Okay.
repeat, that would be good.
No problem. I was actually just saying, I think it would be good for me to know what industry and what role so we can customize
Yeah.
the answer. However, just to share what the data we'll be going through, we're going to be looking at a retail store that has many different branches or stores. You can imagine it like the LCBO because it is liquor in the US. And we're going to be looking at sales trends and we're going to be seeing how does a store perform in different conditions, right? And trying to make predictors based on that. That being said, like at the end of the day, data is data. So what I mean by that is the fundamental pieces you need to do to clean the data, whether it's a retail store, whether it is banking, or whether it is, I don't know, logistics, right? It's very much following the same core principles. We're not going to get into going deep into industries and say, hey, in banking, here are all the trends that are happening, or in capital markets, here's what we're doing. That's not what we're going to do. So it is meant to be more of a generalist course. We're also going to play around with AI and predictive analytics and what does that mean when we look at AI. Because one thing I've heard a lot about is a lot of vendors will come to all industries and say, hey, I have a tool for you. It's AI based, and everyone gets excited. I really don't like that. I want to I want to be able to talk to everyone and get us the right information on that as well. So hopefully that answers your question. But if you want to share what industry you're in, I can certainly add more flavor to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. One last question, which is kind of in the same boat. Is this course relevant for people who don't currently manage a team of data scientists or analysts?
Yes, absolutely. Most people who are coming here do not manage a team of data scientists, I would say. I think there's a lot of folks who I've taught in the last two classes who had aspirations to one day either lead a data analytics team or become more of a data science expert within the business. The trend is moving towards a situation where organizations are not building a standalone data science team unless they're quite big, right? Like PepsiCo, for example, obviously they would. But what they're starting to do is build something called citizen data scientists, where You sit within the business and you might spend 10, 20% of your time doing analytics. And in my experience, that's a great way for you to be, let's call it, noticed by leadership. Because if you can go to your, COO or CEO and say, hey, if we do this, we can save us 50,000 a month, even at those numbers, because I ran the model and I think this can work. I think that'll get you a lot of kudos, even if you're not running a data science team. Okay.
Thank you, Will. Those are all the questions I had messaged to me directly. If anybody has any last couple of questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and we'll be happy to answer those for you. Okay. I think, Will, you did a great job at, providing all the questions and the feedback for the course. Everybody's pretty informed, I guess. So thank you so much for joining, everybody. With this, we come towards the end of our session. I will just give a quick reminder. Our course for Modern Analytics for Business Forecasting is starting September 22nd of this year. I will post a link to register for the course. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email us as well, and we'd be more than happy to answer those for you. And once again, thank you, Will, for joining us and for leading our session today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.